how do we see that changing, or are those conversations taking place within the South African context? And even to throw it to the IAS as well, there's a strong focus on listed companies for analysts. There's a prestige almost to actually talk about the top 40 companies versus what's happening in the alternative space. Is that also a narrative that will be changing this?
Very much so, and I was going to raise that a few moments ago. In fact, I think in the wake of the global financial crisis of 2008, as the appetite for listed vehicles waned a bit, there was definitely an improvement in the appetite for private equity. And I think the same thing is happening. And you started off the conversation with Tanya, asking, saying you were perhaps a little bit surprised. Maybe it's not so surprising, given the fact that the JSE All-Share Index has gone nowhere slowly for the past 5 years.
Yep.
And particularly in small and medium-cap companies. Companies where there are a lot of entrepreneurs. Many of these companies have been founded by entrepreneurs. And they're getting very, very frustrated indeed. And I think, why on earth do we have to be listed? What is the point? Sometimes, it's so embarrassing. You go to presentations and there's like 3 people there. And there just isn't the interest among the institutions. There's the private client, sure. So maybe you're seeing the swing. And if this carries on for much longer, and it's quite possible that it can, then I think the possibility is that you're going to see this further move back into private equity and away from the listed arena, certainly in the small medium cap space.
If I look at venture capital in South Africa, earlier on I said it's still a very new industry. Our membership base, out of the 131, only 22 focus on what we call early stage investment. And in terms of, you look at the sizes of their teams and how many deals they can do, on average they do between 6 and 10 deals. So if, let's say they do a maximum of 10 deals, that's 220 deals as a whole for a venture capital sector. In South Africa, that's not enough. So we need more venture capital fund managers that are able to make more investments in entrepreneurs, because they don't only bring the capital, as a lot of you might have heard yesterday, they also bring expertise, they bring access to market, they bring networks, they bring mentoring and coaching. But in South Africa, we've got a huge gap in the very seed, early stage investments for entrepreneurs. They struggle to get money. Yes, there's some grants, there's some loans and debt guarantees that you can get, but they're few and far between. Then you get angel investing, venture capital investing, and because we don't have such a big venture capital sector and with deep enough pockets, because the average size of a venture capital fund is 200 to 300 million rand. It needs to be 500 million to a billion rand to really make it effective as a size of a fund. But the venture capital sector itself battled to raise funds. So even the fund managers battle to raise funds. There's such negative sentiment in the market at the moment in terms of the economy, low GDP growth rates. Yet we're seeing both private equity and venture capital. And just to make the distinction between the two, venture capital is more early stage investments into entrepreneurs and businesses, where private equity is the more growth later kind of stage investments into SMEs and bigger kind of companies. And on both fronts, we're seeing increased investment, both from private equity and venture capital. The private equity value chain, it's sort of cyclical, where there's fund managers that raise funds, then they invest it into private companies, they then help with value creation, working with these companies, and then at some point they exit their stake. And it also depends on which fund managers are in which part of the cycle, and that also sort of dictates the kind of deal activity that you'll see.
With that said though, if you take a look at the role of your institution, certainly with the members that you have on board in either the VC or PE space, this certainly does unlock more economic opportunities. But what are the fundamental principles that we actually find are working for us in the South African environment that do still make us attractive to markets like Morocco, which I understand are literally right on our tentacles?
So South Africa is still, from a private equity and venture capital's perspective, more private equity than venture capital, because there's a lot of venture capital activity happening in Kenya and Nigeria. So there's lots of activity there. The venture capital sector in South Africa is still very young, still growing, not even 15 years old in South Africa, and not a lot of people know that. The other question, is there a venture capital sector, or where is the venture capital sector? But it's still very young. kind of industry in South Africa. Whereas private equity on the continent, we are the more mature market in terms of the region. So the Southern African region is the more mature market. Lots of activity and deals happening still in South Africa. And especially if you look at the number of exits, because that's how investors sort of gauge whether the asset class is effective or not, is can you exit and at some point return the funds back to the investors.